Thank you, lady.
So as people are coming in, I've been wearing this mask all day, just talking to patients, and I really miss seeing most of my patients in person. And the few that we do see, we're wearing masks. And then when they take their masks off, when I check their throat or whatever we need to do, we get kind of surprised that we've all grown older over the past 2 years. So I wanted to share. I haven't seen Leona in person since we started wearing masks. Every time we see you in person, we're wearing masks again. So I just wanted to show you, Leona, my COVID beard.
Nice.
Yeah, because there's very few patients that have been coming in.
Love it.
Although we do see patients. So I had all these almost expired Rogaine samples. So I went crazy with it to see if I can grow facial hair.
That's amazing. Looks great.
I have to confess, in case there's patients there, Rogaine doesn't work on the face, so it doesn't help with facial hair. This is just a Zoom side effect. It's a side effect if I can't get rid of it, but it's one of the Zoom preference options you can choose to make your Zoom videos more interesting. But the important thing is when you're fooling around with it, make sure you can reverse it. Because I was doing a talk with some physician colleagues, and of course, physicians are usually late all the time. So I was there with the staff, and we were talking about. Oh, it's still there. Uh-oh.
It is there.
Yeah, let me try. So I was telling you, if you don't have time to put on your makeup, you can actually do it all with the Zoom preferences. So you go to Zoom, you go under preferences, if I do it right. Then you go under background and filters, and there's special studio effects.
Oh, I'll have to remember that.
Yeah,
for
and
my
on
next
the
team meeting.
but if you're not careful, it'll apply to all your future Zoom meetings.
Oh,
so, and then the physician showed up like 20 minutes late, and then halfway through the meeting, one of the physicians said, "Dr. Wong, are you wearing lipstick?" And then I looked at my image, and yeah, I was wearing the Zoom lipstick, so I had to cover it up with a bunny face. So
I love
have
that.
fun with it. So have fun with the Zoom preferences. So you guys are not on camera, so you can goof around with it if you want. So Leona, do we have enough people?
We can get started. Yeah, we have about 25 people. So I think we can keep going, and they just keep coming in. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah, welcome everyone. And just a reminder, as family docs, we're still in the office, although we're doing a lot of video and like phone and video calls during the pandemic. We do have patients that can come in the office so we can physically examine things. So it's really hard to see the skin in photographs. I've seen lots of photographs that focus on maybe the hair, but not actually the skin lesion that we're trying to identify. So sometimes it's better to see people in person, and we're taking safety precautions just to make sure everyone's safe. Checking on vaccination status, but even if you haven't been vaccinated for some reason, we won't deny care to any patient. We would just take extra precautions with masks and making sure patients aren't coming in at the same time where they could possibly get exposed to each other. So if you've been neglecting your health or have something that's been pressing, like a pain in your abdomen or some skin lesion that you can't quite diagnose or you're not sure, don't let it slide. Contact your doctor. We can do our best on the phone, but often we can get patients to come in safely so we can assess them. So please don't neglect your usual maintenance for chronic conditions. And definitely if you have some concerns, haven't had your routine screening tests, connect with your doctor. We could still do most of those things. Some of it virtually, but a lot of it we could still do in person. We're just trying to limit longer visits. Like we don't do routine physicals, but we do things that are medically necessary, and then in-person visits to make proper diagnoses, because I think we're going to miss a lot if we try to manage everything by telephone or video. So don't forget to reach out to your doctor. We're still in business. We don't have any lack of business, so I'm not trying to drum up more business for my colleagues, because we've had longer days and it has been more tedious, but we're looking after our patients and our staff, and definitely looking after our community too. So if any of you haven't met Leona in person, I want to personally introduce Leona and thank you for being the backbone and the reason why Empowering Patients have worked so well. This is our Burnaby Division of Family Practices Public Health Education Program. because we all recognize the need for objective health information, especially during the pandemic. But even before the pandemic, we get overwhelmed with medical advice from people that may not be qualified, but definitely sometimes people that are biased and trying to sell us things, like Dr. Oz. So this is your family doctors trying to put objective information you need to stay healthy, what kind of things to look out for. And a lot of our talks are about how to communicate with healthcare providers and what you need to be an advocate and navigate the healthcare system. And we have a bunch of talks all set up for this next year. And Leona has posted the links, I believe, in the chat or the sidebar. So you can look at our upcoming talks. And we had planned to do it in person, but then the numbers and the fourth wave has intervened. So until it's safe to do so, we'll continue to do it by Zoom. So I may or may not appear with makeup, lipstick, or mustache, but we'll be available to share this valuable information. And I believe there's a whole bunch of links that are useful. So really objective evidence on the latest on COVID and COVID vaccines. So if you have questions about COVID vaccine, please reach out to us, check the websites. There's information about how you can get your code, your vaccination code that you'll need to access a lot of restaurants and even our community centers in Burnaby for group activities. We require the QR codes as well. And there's also links to our walk with our doc, which I'll be referring to. So normally this talk is given in a shortened version at Confederation Senior Center just before we do our annual walk with our doc. But because we're not going to do a live presentation, and because we're doing it at a different time of the year, we decided to do it separately so that you have the option of doing this safely without having to wear a mask. And I can actually discuss a lot more than we normally do in that quick half-hour talk. And of course, we limit our talks to about an hour and a half and leave room for questions in the chat. And because I'm over 50, a lot of the audience is, that's why we limit this to under 2 hours so everyone has a chance to take a washroom break if they need to. And of course, you're welcome to go to the washroom anytime. I believe everyone is muted. So I'm going to share my screen, and then Leona will let me know if there's any problems with the audio, because I can hook up my microphone if we need to.
Yeah, and if people have questions, you can just put the questions in the chat and I will monitor that, and we can go through questions at the end. If that works for you, Dr. Wong?
That sounds great.
Perfect.
Can you see my screen, Leona?
Yes.
Good. Well, this talk is We Were Made to Move. Healthy physical activity, which does include exercise, but all of the other things that you do physically are really beneficial for your health. So I'm responsible for the content of this presentation, but it's been kindly sponsored by a Burnaby Division of Family Practice, which is the family doctors that serve the Burnaby community. So we look after not only our patients, but our community as well. So these talks are a demonstration of that, but so is our walk with our doc, showing that doctors also exercise and that we care about our patients and care about our community. If you want to learn more about the Division of Family Practice, check our webpage, divisionsbc.ca/Burnaby. There's other divisions, but of course we think ours is the best because we're in the best community in all of BC. So why are we here? It's part of our expanding circle of care. Of course, all of us, when we're growing up, we care about our family, and then we care about our friends, and it expands to our community. And I think all of us are responsible for the future of our entire community, the well-being of everyone. And I'm reminded by this because this is the way my mom was. She was raised by a very close family, and she looked after my dad and my 2 siblings and looked after all their needs. And her circle of concern spread to friends, to the church community, to the entire community. And it just seemed to be ever expanding. And there's no limit to the compassion that my mom showed. So I'm just continuing my mom's legacy. Today, we're going to talk about physical activity. And I'll start with, as usual, the 4 foundations of self-care, the basic things for us to look after ourselves. And that's really the core of our Empowering Patients program. I'll talk about the benefits of exercise. So we all know exercise is good for you, but I'll tell you particularly what the science tells us of the many different ways that exercise benefits your health and your emotional and social well-being. I'll talk about 6 key aspects of physical function, so different types of exercise and how they benefit us, not just in being fit, but actually they help us do everyday activities that provide us meaning. And how to fit physical activity into each day. And I know that's been a super difficult challenge during the pandemic, where a lot of our routines have been like totally thrown out the window. Because I had this wonderful routine that works so well, waking up at 5:20 every morning, arriving at the community center like Bonzer or Eileen Daily at 6 a.m. as soon as they open, either working on the weights first or just jumping straight in the pool, swimming my laps, and then working out in the gym, and then home for breakfast with the kids before I go off to work. So it was a great routine, but then the pandemic intervened and the pools shut down and the community centers had to limit their activities. So I haven't been back to the public pool since the beginning of the pandemic. So I've had to find ways to get my physical activity. So I might mention it later, but I just converted to riding my bike to work and riding home every day. So I found that's been a good replacement, although I miss that social connection of meeting up friends and people in the community at the swimming pools. So when we think about healthcare, a lot of the time we think about the acute care, like what we see in Grey's Anatomy or like saying elsewhere in the olden days. But really what we do in the community is a big part of it. What I do in family practice, but all the other healthcare providers, the pharmacists, the physiotherapists, respiratory therapists, our social workers do a lot of the community and chronic care. But when you think about who's the most important person that provides most of your healthcare, you probably guessed it, it's you. It's not healthcare professionals. We are just there to support you. And you are responsible for living a healthy lifestyle, taking medications if you need to take them, getting the other things that you need to do to stay healthy. And that's where our program comes in and supporting you in guidelines and support in accessing the things you need to do to stay healthy. So I believe that real healthcare, the bulk of healthcare is really our self-care. And the best predictor of your future health, at least with those things that we can control, are the habits that you practice today. So healthy habits, like the poster in my background in my exam room. The 4 foundations of self-care are what you eat, what you put into your body. So we've had a talk on healthy nutrition, following the Canada Food Guides with modifications about different diets. So you can see our recent talk on the website for the Divisions of Family Practice under Empowering Patients. The second is what we're talking about today, what you do, physical activity balanced by rest. The third foundation is how you feel, emotional well-being. So in that talk, I cover over the key skills for mental well-being and ways to manage stress. And the fourth important foundation of self-care is how we connect healthy relationships. And we've really seen the value of relationships at all levels during the pandemic when we haven't been able to see all our friends, colleagues, seeing our patients in person. The pandemic has really done a big one on our relationships, but it showed us what is really essential for our overall well-being, our total well-being. Another poster that I have in the background, the kind of like the couch potato, but the couch potato is just kind of sitting on a small chair. So we were made to move. When we don't, our health suffers, but when we do, we thrive. And the great example is my dad, and he's in on the talk too. He's been coming to all my talks, even the virtual ones, and he'll be joining us in 2 days at our walk with our doc as well. With a good, safe, socially distanced walk with members of the community. The mayor will be there, and I'll be there with a bunch of dedicated docs from the community, showing that we care about your health and we care about our community as well. So, the 7 benefits of physical activity. So number 1, exercise does decrease our personal risk for heart disease, that's heart failure and narrowing of the arteries, as well as stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure, and cancer. Many types of cancers are reduced by regular exercise. And exercise plays a really important role in managing and improving some of these chronic health conditions as well. So if you do have diabetes or heart disease, there's specific exercise programs that are beneficial to help you thrive with these conditions, to meet your care goals for each of those conditions. Exercise prevents unhealthy weight gain, helps us maintain a healthy weight, and it complements healthy nutrition to maintain a healthy weight. Exercise improves the fitness of your heart, lungs, and muscles. And that exercise really conditions our body so that we can do everyday activities much easier. So I could have put a picture of my dad, who still mows his own lawn with a gas mower. So he's the most like no maintenance dad. I don't have to look after my dad at all. I just have to check on him once in a while to see how he's doing, but he never needs help in doing any of the things to just maintain his own house and maintain his lawn. So he does a lot of things that would be exhausting for myself, actually. So my dad remains very active and fit, and he stays physically active, looking after himself and his own home. Regular exercise prevents falls and improves thinking or cognition. So it could slow down the onset of dementia or memory problems. Because when we're using our body, using our eyes and our brain, and become accustomed to movement, our balance, our agility, our ability to react also improve. And when blood flows better throughout our body, it also flows better with the circulation in our brain. So that's actually one of the keys to continued cognitive or brain health, well-being. So a healthy body promotes a healthy brain. And regular weight-bearing exercise, that means walking around, hiking, using some weights, like light hand weights, help maintain not only your muscle function and strength, but also the density of your bones. So important as we get older, because we can gradually lose bone density from just age, but often from disuse. If we're not walking as much, not hiking and doing physical things, our bones will lose a lot of its calcium and increase our risk for fractures. When we fall down, we could easily fracture a wrist or more seriously fracture our hips. And exercise improves sleep, as long as you're not doing it just before you go to bed. And certainly physical activity improves emotional well-being. So here's one of my favorite pictures of my daughter when she was little. Now she's much older and studying speech therapy. We're really proud of her. But running around and chasing your kids is great for your emotional well-being as well. Exercise reduces the stress hormones like cortisol, which are not good for us in the long term. They're good for emergencies. They raise our natural endorphins. So these are natural hormones that improve our sense of well-being and are actually natural painkillers as well. Exercise improves our confidence, physical confidence, and emotional confidence. And the more active we are, the more accomplished we feel. And of course, there's these social benefits of exercise that a lot of us have missed a lot, like swimming with a group, lap swimming, and of course, all those classes like yoga and Zumba and spin classes and ballroom dancing and CrossFit and weight training and ping pong, all these things that have been put on hold, but are becoming available now with some restrictions because of the pandemic. So this is sadly missed, but the social benefits of connecting with people on a regular basis and having interactive exercise, way more fun, but it's really important for our emotional well-being. Physical literacy doesn't mean your knowledge of exercise, but it's kind of the fundamental skills that you learned in PE or gym class when you're in elementary school, like throwing and catching, jumping and striking, running, kicking, agility, balance, and coordination. All these are really fundamental movement skills that they teach in physical education to kids, but there are actually a lot of things that you may not be doing every day as a grown-up, particularly if you're working from home or you're living in a small condo and you don't have the activity to go out and do these types of sports, but they're actually really important. So I just want to quickly go over why they're important. So a lot of my patients and a lot of my colleagues haven't actually run for any reason for decades, but running is really important. If you need to chase down the newspaper, if you still get the paper, rather than looking online. If you're escaping from a fire, if you see a runaway baby carriage or a runaway baby, you need to be able to run or run for the bus. But if we haven't run for a long time, it's much easier to fall down and injure ourselves. So running is really important for emergencies. So it is useful. But if you haven't run in a long time, or you're thinking about doing the sun run for the first time in 10 years, you may want to hook up with some trainers or talk to your doctor first if you're not doing any cardio activity yet. So when was the last time any of you had jumped? Assuming you haven't seen any mice or spiders. Very helpful for jumping over the puddles when you're going for your walks on a rainy day with your umbrella, yellow raincoat. Very important to avoid stepping on dog poop or jumping out of the way from an oncoming vehicle. So we might need to jump for emergencies, so it might be good to get back into practice in an easy way. And of course, kicking is very important, especially if you want to kick out the window to escape from a burning building or from a bus or a car, or to defend yourself from an attacker. So this is an actual picture from our staff washroom at Prime Care, because people are notorious for, in spite of the sign, for not leaving any toilet paper. So it's good to be flexible so you can flush the toilet without using your hands. And because we're Canadian-born Chinese, we thought when we were growing up that Kung Fu was invented in order to get out of the dirty restroom of a Chinese restaurant without using your hands. When would you ever need to strike anything? Well, of course, to swat a mosquito with a fly swatter without throwing your shoulder out of joint. And of course, throwing is useful if you just want to toss something into the trash can without having to stoop over and pick it up if you miss. And also, it's a faster way to move your laundry. Catching is useful, so you can catch your keys if someone tosses it to you, or catch a dish before it falls from the cupboard. And if you haven't been in practice, you might injure yourself if you try to do that. And really important to continue agility, balance, and coordination, because this really helps us take a shower, put on our socks, put on our support hose if we need them. It really helps with the balancing required for cooking. Simply changing your clothes requires a lot of flexibility and balance and coordination, and definitely driving requires us to be very flexible so we can twist and check our blind spot. Oh, by the way, I did hear this great way. If you're a driver and you're about to open your driver's door and it might be a busy street and you don't want to accidentally hit someone walking by or an oncoming car to your left when you open your door, and you definitely don't want to hit a cyclist that's coming by. So there's a new technique that people are adopting in Canada, but I think it came from somewhere else first. It's called the Dutch reach. So the Dutch reach is, instead of opening your car door on the driver's side with your left hand, which is closest, use your opposite hand. So you reach over to open the car door, and when you reach over, you're kind of forced to look out the window and check any blind spots. So think about reaching over with your opposite hand. If you're a passenger and you want to make sure you're not going to hit someone coming up on your passenger side, reach over with the furthest hand. It requires a bit of flexibility, but you'll turn your body and you'll turn your head and you'll make sure there's no one there when you open the door. So that's the Dutch reach that I just learned about last week. So these 6 aspects of physical function are from this reference in case you're curious, but we'll talk about cardiopulmonary fitness. So not all exercise looks after this, but this would be running, cycling, swimming, walking, all these things that are endurance activities. So they build up our pulmonary fitness and cardiovascular conditioning for our blood vessels in our heart. And examples would be obviously running, swimming, cycling, and walking, but everyday activities that benefit from this and actually do these activities would be raking the leaves, which we'll all be doing if you have a deciduous tree in your front or backyard before the kids go trick-or-treating in October. Vacuuming is a good cardiovascular activity, mowing the lawn, as my dad does, washing the dishes if you live in a big house, doing our laundry, everyday cooking, walking to the bus stop, shopping, all require cardiovascular endurance. So these activities definitely benefit your cardiovascular endurance, and working on it will help you do these activities for longer periods of time at an older age. Another aspect of physical functioning is flexibility, the ability to move freely. So typical exercises that help you with this would be dancing and gymnastics and yoga and Pilates. And they will help you do these things like picking up the newspaper or putting away the dishes and reaching the top shelf, changing yourself, doing laundry, bathing and showering, and looking after your feet. Coordination, the smooth, efficient movement of your body. You can work on this with dancing, tennis, table tennis, and juggling. Obviously, hockey, basketball, and bowling, pickleball, and exercise class, aquatic classes, and softball. And these help you with your grocery shopping and cooking, eating and drinking, dusting, putting on your clothes, and driving. Stability in your muscles and joints, and your balance, muscle balance. We do that again with Tai Chi or Pilates and Yoga, but this benefits us in putting on our clothes again, cooking, getting in and out of the bathtub and the shower, doing our dishes, doing our laundry, putting on your socks and shoes and support stockings. Dynamic balance is maintaining balance when you're in action, like you would if you're dancing, swimming, doing flip turns, aquaside, Zumba, martial arts, cycling, and running. And comes in handy when you're shopping, when you're bathing and showering, brushing your teeth, washing your hair, climbing ladders, and climbing stairs. And finally, muscle performance, like strength and power and endurance of your muscles that we can get with resistance exercise. Doesn't have to be heavy weights, but even light 2-pound dumbbells that you can have, that you can use in the living room. Pilates and yoga and calisthenic exercises, push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups are great muscle strengthening exercises. So when I was growing up, my dad put up a chin-up or pull-up bar in the laundry room. So we'd always do like 10 pull-ups or chin-ups going in and out of the laundry room. So good for building up our upper body strength. Also handy for grocery shopping and driving, taking out the trash and vacuuming, raking and mowing the lawn, moving chairs around, moving furniture. But be careful with heavy appliances and the Chesterfield. We don't want you to have a disc herniation. So, but doing the everyday movements in the house are benefited by improving your muscle strength. So you can see that things that we sometimes associate with particular exercises, these aspects of physical activity improve our everyday activities and reduce our injuries. Of course, physical activity is important and healthy for you, but everything comes with some risks, so doing so safely. I just show this because one of my worst injuries was actually on the flying trapeze. And it wasn't from falling from the trapeze, but it was a particular activity or trick, advanced trick that I was learning, where I was supposed to, after flipping around, I was supposed to land on a bar and then throw myself through the bar. And you're supposed to land on your hips, but I didn't want to injure any precious area down below because I wasn't sure we were going to have more kids. So I let the bar land too close to my chest and fractured 7 ribs all at one time. But that involved actually only 5 ribs, but 2 of them were fractured in the front and back. So when a patient comes in 1 or 2 fractured ribs, I do have some sympathy that it is painful, but nothing compared to 7 fractured ribs at one time. If your current workout is moving from the couch to the fridge and you're over 40, or if you're at risk for heart disease or have some other significant chronic conditions such as diabetes, heart failure, asthma, or chronic bronchitis, or arterial vascular disease, talk to your doctor before you engage in some rigorous cardiovascular exercise. That's exercise that gets your heart pumping really fast. If you have significant osteoarthritis, you might choose activities that are not as harmful or demanding on the joints. So osteoarthritis is the wear and tear we can get in commonly the hips and the knees. If that's the case, we would probably avoid high impact running, and we might choose swimming as a better choice, that's a bit easier on the joints. You have to avoid being dehydrated, so make sure you drink adequate fluids because we're perspiring, and if you're exercising in a hot environment or during a heat wave, then hydration is even more important. And to reduce injuries, it's best to start with a lower intensity, You need to exercise in a safe environment and get expert assistance and instruction, use proper equipment. For example, wearing helmets when you're cycling, wearing appropriate shoes that are stable and non-slip. And of course, avoid over-exercise. So some of the symptoms of over-exercising would be excessive weight loss. So exercise could be an addiction. So some people exercise to manage stress and they might kind of overdo it. So one of the symptoms could be losing excessive weight, being constantly exhausted, like physically and psychologically exhausted, or having constant muscle soreness and tiredness. Getting recurrent injuries, like from running too much, or recurrent strains, or recurrent infections and chronic fatigue, as I mentioned. Or if you're neglecting other important areas of your life, work, school, friends, loved ones, because you're spending too much time training for the marathon. And we need to balance activity with rest and healthy nutrition. So bottom line is we should all be involved in a variety of physical activities in groups or in solo, involving all 6 aspects of physical function. Fiona, I see a few things on the chat. Are there any relevant questions that I should be addressing right now?
Not at the moment. No,
Okay.
we just did a flag to folks.
Okay, you let me know if anything comes up that's relevant, but I'll definitely leave time at the end to answer any questions you have about what I'm talking about or anything else related to COVID or anything that's relevant or important to you. So how do you fit in physical activity into each day? So we should all look for simple ways to increase our level of physical activity. There's simple things like walking or biking to school or work. So that's one of the examples that I've done to make up for not swimming every day is cycling to work. And of course, it does come with some risks. So I have to make sure that I have proper lighting. If it's past 7 p.m. when the sun's setting, make sure I wear a helmet and also to watch out for cars and to be very safe. If you're taking the bus, you might even want to get off the bus stop a little bit earlier, a few blocks from your destination instead of right in front, so you can get a little extra walking at the same time. I have a smartwatch, which reminds me every hour when I'm doing phone calls and other things with patients to get up and move around. So it actually gives me a little chime and a vibration to remind me that it's time to stand up and move around. So there's little things to jog our remembering of being active throughout the day. And if you're working from home or doing a lot of things or in front of the television a long time, it's good to set up little routines. So one thing you can do is actually drink a lot of water or a lot of fluid, as long as you don't have kidney problems or heart failure. So follow your doctor's recommendations for fluid restriction. But most of us should drink plenty of fluids. And of course, if we drink plenty of fluids, at least we'll have to get up every couple hours to go to the washroom. And that would be a reminder to get up, do your business, but take the opportunity to do some stretches and physical activity of what we've been doing is pretty sedentary. And since we start the fall and autumn weather tomorrow, but got an early preview of rain last weekend, I think it's really good to prepare for the upcoming weather. So if your plan is to do a little bit more walking or to walk almost every day, we have to prepare for the rainy days too. So do so safely, because I do notice that everyone likes to wear black these days. So I would like to see more of us wearing the yellow rain jackets we wore in elementary school and carrying bright umbrellas and lights. So there wouldn't be any reason why we couldn't get out if we can do safely in our neighborhood to go out and do some walking. Of course, in the past, pre-pandemic, a lot of people would go to the shopping mall to walk around when it was a little bit too cold or wet, but it may not be the safest place to go during a pandemic. So I encourage you, if you can safely do so, to make a plan to walk with some friends, but make sure you're wearing your brightly colored raincoat and rain boots so you can enjoy the rain and even jump in some puddles.
Dr. Wong, Anne is asking about active rehab alternating with workouts, and if that works.
So active rehab alternating with workouts. So active rehab is a term that sometimes refers to recovering from an injury. So a lot of people, if they've had a work or motor vehicle related injury, they might attend an active rehab program, which is kind of guided physical activity by a kinesiologist or physiotherapist. So if it's active rehab in that sense, then actually you do the guided activities, but also you continue those workouts on your own as well. If you're recovering from an injury, then you probably follow the advice of your therapist, physician, kinesiologist, or physiotherapist about what other activities will complement what you're doing and are consistent with your injuries. There's also specific disease-related rehab activity programs like cardiac rehab. So after someone has had a heart attack or has had cardiovascular surgery, like bypass or a stent put in, often they'll be enrolled in a guided, safe, medically supervised cardiac rehab program. So that's a little bit different. And that one should be carefully guided and prescribed by the cardiologist working with your family physician. So they'll tell us what activities are consistent and what you should be monitoring if you're in a cardiac rehab program. Did that address the question? Just waiting for her response.
No comment yet, so I'll let you know if she has any other follow-up.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Leona.
No problem.
So other tips would be going hands-free at home when you're talking on the phone. Actually, my colleagues and I have been doing that when they're managing a lot of phone or video calls, is actually using a hands-free receiver and then walking around the room so we can get a little bit of stretching done without getting within 6 feet of one another. And dancing to your favorite music. So it's in your own home, then you can put on your favorite music and dancing and moving, doing what you naturally do to make it fun. So all these movements, even though they're not specifically organized exercise, are really helpful ways of making physical activity just part of what we do. Because really, as I mentioned, we were made to move. This is how the human body has evolved, not to be sitting in front of a computer as we have been for the last hour, or in front of the television, or doing desk work all the time, or riding in a car or on the bus or the SkyTrain for long periods of time. We were really meant to move and to just foster emotional and physical and social well-being. We need to continually move. So if we fit it into our everyday activities, it becomes so much easier, and we definitely benefit in terms of our overall health. So we should limit our screen time, but if you do find yourself in front of the TV, like watching the Olympics or the elections or some other things that you can't draw yourself away from, do your stretches and exercise in front of your favorite TV shows. So got this idea from my dad, as he always is doing sit-ups and calisthenics, and he's even used his little rebounder for running and jumping when he's watching his favorite shows. So that's a great time to do stretches, to keep on moving, move around. And of course, you can check out our local community center. You do have to get your vaccine passport in order to get in. And if you need more information, as I mentioned, Leona has listed some links on the side on how to get your vaccination card, some information on where you can get vaccinations, some links on COVID-19 so you can get some objective information. And there's really there's so much variety of community centers that they are reopening with safe restrictions, that there's something for everyone, as well as and to connect socially through our North and South Burnaby neighborhood houses and our seniors community centers as well. And this is my favorite pool, Central Park. So I did actually get in one last swim on the last day. Central Park was open on Labor Day. It was actually the last day, and there was hardly anyone in the pool. But unfortunately, it's closed. And hopefully, when it reopens next year, hopefully we'll have this pandemic under control. I'm really looking forward to doing our talks in person again. So I really miss seeing all of your enthusiastic faces in person. So if our goal is to become physically more active, I'll give you some tips that I've shared with patients and used myself in order to be more successful in setting my goals and achieving them, and helping my patients achieve their goals. So number one important thing is choose wisely. Choose a goal that matters to you. something that you really care about, or a goal that's linked to something you care about. So if you care about being around for your children or grandchildren, for your spouse, and to be there to support your friends, and you know you need to be healthy and around for them, then it makes sense to eat in a healthy way and to be physically more active. So it has to be meaningful for you. If you're just going to exercise because the doctor says you should or someone else says you should, you have to make sure it's aligned to what you care about. And so I'm careful when I'm setting goals with patients that it's something that's important to them, and then there's not other significant goals that they want to address first. Otherwise, you won't be able to put your heart into it. And if it's just a list for someone else to put on for you, like if the wife puts it on the husband's list, you may not really want to do that. So it has to be one that's on your list. It's really important to visualize yourself having achieved your goal, to really, when you relax, really visualize yourself doing what you want to do. And visualize yourself maybe a month from now having made that a usual routine of waking up in the morning at a particular time, putting on your shoes, your bright raincoat if it's a rainy day, and getting out there for a walk as soon as the sun rises when it's safe to do so. Or if your goal is to start going to the swimming pool every day, then to visualize yourself doing it, and visualize how you will feel. So visualization is what you see, but when you do that, imagine how you feel physically, that sense of well-being and that renewed energy and the enthusiasm, and kind of imagine what you're going to hear, that positive self-talk, that telling yourself you did it well, that you're getting stronger, and you're getting more involved and healthier every day. So really imagine yourself being successful. And break down that big goal into something that's really manageable. So if my goal was to do the sun run, but I haven't actually done any running for 10 years, I should break that down to a little goal, which might be just starting a combination of walking or jogging for maybe a few blocks for the first week. And then when I've done that successfully, then I might the next week do it for 2 blocks, or gradually increase the amount of time that I'm running as opposed to walking. So if you start small and go slow, then you can build on top of that small victory, and you actually build your confidence over time. But if I start running for 20 minutes straight and get exhausted or injured, I probably would abandon that bigger goal of doing the sun run in April. So to gain your confidence, start with early successes. A big key is to write down the details, and it's just to yourself. We'll talk later about sharing it with other people. But if you write down the details, you're much more likely to be successful. There's something about writing it down. It's kind of a commitment to yourself, but it puts it in a real physical way for yourself and helps you to visualize it at the same time. And when you write it down, you may have heard of SMART goals, but of course, this is Burnaby, so I had to come up with SMART goals. These are just a reminder of the key things that you should think about before you're starting a goal. So you have to be very specific about your goal. So the goal shouldn't be just to be physically more active, because that's a little bit non-specific. Specifically, what you want to do differently. And it could be going for a walk. And if it's going for a walk, where are you going to walk? And again, when are you going to walk? M is measurable. So how much are you going to be walking, or how long are you going to be walking? A, the goal has to be achievable, so realistic and doable. So as I said, like with the sun run, I'm not going to start running for a whole 5 or 10 kilometers if I haven't been even walking that distance or even jogging. So make it something achievable, something doable and realistic, and something that you can easily achieve, and you can always build up on it. R means it has to be relevant. As I mentioned, it has to be important to you and really aligned with your values, and obviously for your health. T refers to time. So when you're going to start and when you're going to finish. And then these extras, because we're in Burnaby and we're the smartest, is evaluate after you achieve that little goal. How did you do and what did you learn? If you had trouble with it, stepping forward, what will you do next and what will you do differently? And then finally, the T is together. Who are you going to work with? Who will you share your success with? And who are you going to invite to join you on the next step in your goal? So smartest goals, so really key. And I believe this is in the key points handout that Leona has given you the links for, and also on our Burnaby Division of Family Practice website under Empowering Patients for other resources. It's really important to anticipate and prepare for the roadblock. So as I was talking about going for a walk every day, if your goal is to walk every day and then it rains, what are you going to do? So anticipate that it's going to rain unpredictably or predictably pretty regularly the further we get into the autumn and the winter. So what are you going to do in those days? Do you have another exercise you're going to do? Do you have access to a treadmill? Are you going to do some YouTube or video or DVD exercises? Or will you just have that bright raincoat that you've already rewarded yourself with, and the bright lights and the bright umbrella and a friend that's going to coax you along? So anticipate and prepare for the roadblock so that regardless of the weather or the circumstances, you'll be able to manage. And 6, enlist support. So this is, it doesn't have to be a professional, but of course, as I mentioned, there are some cases where you might want to consult your family doctor if you haven't been exercising for a while, or if you have medical conditions that might get in the way of being successful in your athletic endeavor. You could choose a coach or a teammate, but that would actually might be your best friend or your spouse or a sibling so that you can do your activity together, because we're much more successful if we have kind of a team, because then we're responsible for each other rather than just ourselves.
Dr. Wong, Anne has a follow-up to her question. I was just gonna permit her to talk, and you can talk to her directly. Does that work?
Yeah, that'll be great.
Great.
Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Hi, Anne.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
That's good.
You want to
Yeah.
go ahead with your question?
So I was meaning, I guess maybe I put it slightly wrong, but I was meaning something like alternating activities like walking with or some other gentler activity with a heavier workout. So if you're working out one day and doing like strength training type workout with an activity that's more like walking, so you're not putting strain on your muscles like that every day.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, total sense.
Okay.
So rather than rehab, it's actually more conditioning or strength building. So for example, when we're working on the weights, often we'll have a rest day. So you might have your light workout days and your heavier workout days, because the muscles need a chance to recover when you're doing the strength training, which should be a part of every overall exercise activity, as we talked about, like building up the muscle strength, like the core strength. So serious bodybuilders, of course, have their leg days and they have their upper body days or the back days. But for most of us, we might do workouts maybe 3 days a week. So my usual routine was to do the cardio every day, but sometimes I would do a heavier, harder workout to get the heart rate up a little bit higher. And I wouldn't do that the same day as a heavy weight workout, but I would do like heavier weight workouts every other day, so I had the chance to recover in between. So it's good to pace those activities because your muscles need to recover. Although we should do cardiovascular activity, and it doesn't have to be super high intensity, but just to the level where you can carry on a conversation, but not do a whole Broadway song and dance routine. So if you're able to sing, it's probably not hard enough, but if you're able to carry on a conversation with a friend at the same time on the phone or walking with you, then that's about the right intensity, building up a little bit of sweat, getting the heart rate up a little bit without any strain or chest discomfort. Doing that at least 30 minutes, 5 days of the week is usually the basic recommendation for pretty well everyone. But if you're doing high intensity training, getting the heart rate a little bit higher, especially when we're younger, and we're allowed to push our heart a little bit more, then it's good to do some heavier workouts and then easier days in between. So it is good to pace, not necessarily do the same exact thing every day.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if you're trying to improve your performance, for example, training for the sun run, you probably want to incrementally increase things, but then have some easy days and rest days in between. But you're not going to spend those days just lying in bed or playing video games. You'll want to do other alternate physical activities.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for asking, Anne. And thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So whatever we do, we want to keep it interesting and have fun, because it shouldn't be a chore. It's not like taking medicine like cod liver oil. And again, we were made to move. When we don't, our health suffers. And when we do, we thrive. And this is one of my favorite places to cycle through. So I cycle through Central Park pretty well every day, either on my way to work or on my way back. And I'll just go there for a fun ride on the weekends, because it's so peaceful there. You'll see people around, but you don't have to get so close that you're sharing any germs. And you just see a variety of people of all ages, and the wildlife, the ducks and the geese and little squirrels. And I don't think you'll find any coyotes here or cougars. And I just really want to remind everyone that you'll find myself and a lot of my enthusiastic colleagues walking with you. You're invited to come walk with your doc this Thursday. So we used to have it in May prior to the pandemic, but from now the doctors of BC will be holding it in September once everyone's settled down in the September routine, well, the new pandemic routine. So we'll be spaced out a little bit more than this, but we won't need to wear face masks if we're keeping our 6 feet apart and we're in an outdoor environment. So you're all welcome to come. We'll say rain or shine, but we're pretty well guaranteed not to rain. And Leona has posted the details. So you can either just show up at 6:30 to register, or you can register online. But I think there's some kind of prize, a limited supply of prizes too for participants. Leona hasn't told me what it is. I don't know if she's going to tell us what it is. Are you allowed to?
There is a prize.
It's a
Well,
surprise.
prize last, yeah. For those that register.
Oh, okay. You better register to get your chance for the prize. Must be something good, otherwise.
Well, it's actually a gift. We have quite a few of them. So folks that register, so you might almost be guaranteed something.
Okay. But what's totally guaranteed is I'll be there. I'm pretty sure my wife and daughter are going to come and bring Teddy, our Labradoodle.
Yay.
And my dad's registered, and he's coming with a bunch of his friends. And I think there's a whole bunch that have already registered, but there'll be a bunch of my colleagues that'll be there too. Other family docs and maybe other physicians from the Burnaby community. So we're there. Please come and say hi if you're there. Don't be shy. You don't have to be my patient to talk to me. And we'll be distant enough so we won't give ourselves any infections. And it's just a really good feel-good thing. And there's a lot of support from the city of Burnaby. And as I mentioned, Mayor Hurley is coming and supporting our walk, and he'll be walking with us as well. So it's going to be a real fun event, and I look forward to it every year, and I really missed it last year. And Leona had a big part in organizing this, so she's really spent a lot of time connecting with Rainey Kent, one of the are great enthusiastic organizers, and so there'll be lots of people throughout Burnaby that'll be coming. So it'll be fun. And it's easy. Everyone walks in their own pace. We're around the track. It's close to Eileen Daly Pool. Lots of doctors around if you're not feeling well, if you have any chest pain. So we're there to help. Eileen Daly Pool is just close by, still should be open. There's a defibrillator there. So it's probably the safest place to go for a walk.
In Burnaby, yeah.
In Burnaby.
I'd say.
Or Greater Vancouver.
We'll have physiotherapists there. Firemen, the fire truck's going to be there.
That's for sure. Yeah, because Mayor Hurley was in charge of the fire department before he took on the bigger role of looking after a whole city.
We did have one more question, Dr. Wong. Someone has said, I have Baker's cyst in my knee. What kind of exercise can I do?
Okay. For anyone that's wondering what a Baker's cyst is, so a Baker's cyst is swelling in the back of the knee, and it's actually from the fluid, the synovial fluid that bathes the knee joint. So when we have osteoarthritis or other type of inflammation in a joint, then that joint, like the knee, can swell. So the Baker's cyst makes the knee very stiff. So anything that decreases inflammation. So sometimes if it's a really big Baker's cyst, then sometimes myself or an orthopedic surgeon may inject some fluid into the knee to take some of the pressure off, may sometimes inject an anti-inflammatory to decrease the inflammation. But we probably should avoid high impact activities. And you probably want to avoid deep squatting because that's hard on the knees. Doing some carefully guided exercises. So maybe a physio or your doctor can guide you in doing some like gentle squats. So squatting just a bit, but not squatting all the way down so it strains the knee joint. So just to strengthen the muscles in the front of the thighs, like the quadriceps, would be a good exercise. Swimming in general would be okay. With the flutter kick is usually okay, but it depends on severity of the arthritis that's causing the Baker's cyst.
Great. I think that's it for questions, unless anyone wants to pop something in the chat. Nope, we have a quiet bunch. Or you've just answered all the questions. Simple as that.
Great. No, it's been such a hard time for people falling out of the routines. And I had a lot of interruptions in my previous exercise routine. So I had a car accident, and then I had a knee injury. So I tore my lateral meniscus, so that made it a little bit hard for doing any more running. So that's why swimming was actually the best exercise for that one. But I also had to have surgery for a rotator cuff tear related to accidents as well. So I had complete rupture of two of the important muscles for raising my arm and internal rotation. So I had a long break from swimming or working on the weights and driving and cycling with that one. So it's so easy to fall out of our accustomed routine. And I think the pandemic has done that with all our healthy routines. So some people have been lucky and they happened to buy exercise equipment before the pandemic or happened to have bicycles, but now it's really hard to buy a bicycle just because they're pretty well sold out everywhere. But some things we can do all the time is to walk. But it's important to get back into new routines. And it's really hard to start a new habit, but I have little keys that make it easier to start a new activity. So it's called Tiny Habits. So there's a psychologist called BJ Fogg, F-O-G-G. He wrote the book Tiny Habits, but you can look at tinyhabits.com if you're thinking of one or two little goals that you want to do. So it's a book, Tiny Habits, but actually you can go to his website, tinyhabits.com, and actually get the gist of his method. So there's 3 keys, A, B, C's of starting a new habit. A is you have to anchor that new habit to some existing behavior that you're doing all the time. So some existing habit. And B, the behavior has to be really tiny and easy to do, like so easy that you can't not do it. And C is you have to celebrate after. So ABC, anchor behavior that you want to do, and C is celebrate. So I'll give an example. Example he gives is he wants to do more push-ups. So he told himself, every time I go to the washroom, going to the washroom is the anchor behavior that we all do. As we get older, we do it more often. So every time I go to the washroom, BJ Fogg said, I will do 1 push-up. And then, so that's a really easy behavior and probably easy to do to start with. And if you haven't done push-ups, your goal might be do a knee push-up, do it from your knees rather than bouncing off your toes. And C sounds a bit silly, but it's to celebrate. And it's either giving yourself a thumbs up or just saying to yourself, I did it, or give yourself a high five, or do a touchdown dance after you do your simple behavior of 1 push-up. Sounds kind of silly, but when you do it in a lighthearted way, you actually get that feel-good feeling and immediate feedback So if you reinforce that little behavior with that positive feedback of feeling good that you accomplished something, you're more likely to do it again. And if you anchor it to something that you're going to do all the time, like brushing your teeth or going to the washroom, then you'll be able to do that one little behavior, like doing a push-up. And what happens is you're not going to start at one push-up. You're probably going to do 2 the next time. And when you celebrate and you find how easy it is, you're probably going to do 3 the time after that. So you can see how you start with the tiny habits, but you anchor it to behavior you're going to do all the time, that you're going to do regardless, like brushing your teeth, like after you take a shower in the morning. Then you anchor on that little behavior that you can do right away, and then celebrate right away. Give yourself a thumbs up, or do a celebration dance, or sing your happy song right afterwards. So say if you decided that you're going to go for a walk, starting tomorrow morning and go for a walk, using the smartest goals, rain or shine, after the sun rises, so it's bright enough, and I'm going to do it with my friend. So make it easy for yourself. So you put your shoes by the door. You'll set up some kind of reminder. So you set the alarm, and you're just going to tell yourself that as soon as you wake up in the morning and have your cup of coffee or tea, or maybe a little snack, then right afterwards you will slip on those runners and your raincoat and umbrella if you need it, and then walk over to your friend's house and go for that little walk, just walking a couple of blocks. And then afterward, you can celebrate together, give each other a high five, and do the same thing the next day. And you'll probably build up on your tiny habits. So one of the keys to success is anchor it to an existing behavior, so it becomes almost automatic. So you're going to do it without thinking. And then B, make it a really simple, tiny behavior that's easy to do, like the one push-up to start with, or walking a couple of blocks. And then C, to celebrate afterwards. So these seem to be the keys to success. So if you go to his website, there's a way you can sign up for, there's nothing to buy. You can actually sign up. They actually have these health coaches all over the world, and they take you through these steps so you can practice doing it for 10 days and start up with 3 new healthy habits. So that's one of the keys that I recommend to a lot of patients that want to start a brand new behavior, like eating better, or remembering to call someone important to themselves, to set up habits that really stick, is these tiny habits method, ABCs: anchor, behavior, the behavior itself, which is easy, and then celebrating afterwards. So it really positively reinforces these new habits. And when it becomes routine, we start all these new routines we're going to do, then we're going to come out of this pandemic having thrived. And it's going to be so nice reuniting with one another, our loved ones, and all our friends that we like to exercise together with. And again, I'm looking forward to meeting all of you on Thursday at Confederation Park, which is close to McGill Library, Eileen Daly Pool, the Confederation Senior Center. So it's all in that area around the track. So we'll be there starting at 6:30. The mayor I'll introduce the mayor, and he'll say some introductory inspiring words, and then we'll start walking around the track at our own pace at 7 p.m. And early birds that register probably will get a prize.
I'm going to guess, yeah.
I can see what the prizes are.
I don't know, it's a surprise.
My dad likes prizes, so I think he's going to be there early, and he's already registered.
Perfect. And just a reminder, when we do go to wrap up for tonight, that there is just a survey of some questions about how you felt about tonight's talk. So if you have a moment, just complete that. That really helps us just assess the program and how we move forward. So.
Yeah, and I am looking forward to doing this in person when it's safe to do so, and seeing all your friendly faces.
That'd be great.
Okay, so I hope I see a lot of you on Thursday, but definitely for our next talk. And there's a schedule for, do you have the next talk handy, Leona?
I do. Our next one is October 21st. It's the patient-doctor relationship, making the most out of each visit with your family doctor.
Yeah, so I find that so helpful. So these are tips you can use with any healthcare provider, whether it's a specialist you're meeting with, or if you find yourself in an emergency. And it will help you if you want to be the advocate for your loved one or friend when they're talking to their doctor. So it's really the key things that I, as a healthcare provider, need to provide to you. And if I don't volunteer them, print out my key points handout that tells you the key things the doctor or the healthcare provider should be telling you, and what you need to know to make decisions about whether you should take a medication or do a certain procedure or go for surgery, what you need to know about risks and benefits, side effects, and alternatives. So we'll talk about that, talk about confidentiality and other ways that physicians and the patients can improve their communication, because that's so key for the system to work for you. And that's what the healthcare system is there for, you to help you all achieve your potential. And really, that's the big reason why I'm here, to put in this extra effort, because I feel my goal in life is to achieve my potential by helping other people to achieve their potential, because I believe we each have a special gift and special talents we need to share with the world. And we have a responsibility to express that and to share it with others and to help others to achieve their potential any way that we can. So thanks for spreading the word. Please invite your friends to join us for the next talk and all of the future talks. And spread the word about the Walk with Your Doc, because it's for anyone, it's free. And as we mentioned, a surprise prize for a lot of people. Okay, and is that everything, Leona?
Yeah, I think we covered it all.
Okay, thanks for sticking around and sharing, and thanks for the great questions. And look forward to talking to you again and maybe meeting you in person on Thursday. Okay, thanks, Leona.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Leona.
Thanks so much. Good night.